control. Have you ever wondered why the moment you stop chasing someone, they suddenly start noticing you more than ever? It almost feels unfair, doesn't it? You give your heart, control, your attention, your effort, and sometimes it seems like the more you give, the less they value it. But the instant you step back, the instant you breathe, something shifts. Control, that person begins to feel your absence in ways they never did when you were right there in front of them. And that's what we're diving into today, the hidden control. Counterintuitive truth about how to make a man miss you. The reality is, human beings don't miss what they already have unlimited access to. When you are always available, control. Always texting back immediately, always saying yes, you become part of the background. Like air, necessary but unnoticed. He doesn't pause to appreciate you, control. Not because you lack value, but because our minds are wired to take for granted what feels guaranteed. Think about it. When was the last time you noticed how vital oxygen was? Control, unless you were gasping for it. Attention works the same way.
Yeah.
Presence works the same way. And love, though deeper, follows this exact psychology. Now, here's the paradox, control. To make a man truly miss you, it's not about pretending, playing cold games, or becoming someone you're not. It's about creating space, control. Space that allows his mind and heart to remember you, to long for you, to imagine you when you're not right there. Because longing cannot exist where there is no distance, control. Desire cannot grow where there is no room for it to breathe. That's why sometimes when you try too hard to hold on, you actually push the very thing you want further away, control. Think about the most powerful memories in your life. Were they born in routine, in things you had every day? Or were they carved out in moments that were rare, fleeting, control, a little bit out of reach? We are drawn to the things that leave an imprint, the things we don't get to touch all the time. That's the secret you need to lean into. Control, by stepping back, not with anger, not with manipulation, but with strength, you allow yourself to become that rare energy he doesn't just see, control, but feels the loss of when you're not there. And here's why you should stay with me until the very end, because once you understand this shift, control, you won't just know how to make a man miss you. You'll learn how to hold your own power in every connection action. You'll see why your energy, your time, control, and your presence are worth protecting. You'll stop clinging from fear and start attracting from strength. This isn't about tricking anyone, control. It's about embodying a kind of self-respect so magnetic that it naturally creates longing, naturally awakens desire, control, and naturally makes someone realize your absence more deeply than your constant presence ever could. So imagine this for a moment. Instead of anxiously waiting for his text, control. Instead of trying to prove your worth through constant effort, you simply shift. You become centered, calm, and intentional. You step into your own life fully, and in doing so, control. You trigger something powerful inside him. He notices the silence. He feels the gap. He wonders what you're doing, where your mind has gone. Control why he doesn't have all of you on demand anymore. And in that moment, missing you begins. That's the turning point. That's where the game changes, control. And by the end of this journey, you'll know exactly how to use this principle to transform not just how he sees you, but how you see yourself, control. The moment he begins to feel that gap, something powerful happens inside him. His mind starts to wander where it never had to wander before, control. He begins to imagine what you might be doing, who you might be with, how you are spending your time without him, control. This curiosity is not just about romance, it's about psychology. The human brain is wired to crave what feels uncertain, to desire what is not guaranteed, control. When you stop giving everything away freely, you create the very tension that makes him feel your absence more than your presence ever did, control. This is not about withholding love or building walls. It's about remembering that your energy is valuable and that its scarcity is what gives it meaning, control. Think about it. Gold is not precious because there is too much of it lying around. It is precious because it is rare, because it cannot be found everywhere, control, because it demands effort to be obtained. You are that kind of treasure. But when you hand over every piece of yourself without pause, the treasure loses its shine, control. The man doesn't even realize what he's holding because it feels endless. By stepping back, you allow him to see that you are not endless, control. And that's exactly what makes you unforgettable. What you must understand is that missing you is not born from constant closeness, control. It is born from the contrast of presence and absence. It is born when the laughter he once heard every day is suddenly quiet, control. When the warmth he once felt on demand is no longer at his fingertips. When the reassurance he relied on now requires him to reach out for it. That reaching, that effort, control, that wondering, that is where missing begins. And the truth is, control, he cannot experience this longing if you are always filling the space before he ever gets the chance to feel it. But here's the deeper truth that makes this so life-changing: control. This shift is not just about making him miss you. It's about transforming the way you see yourself. Because when you learn to create space, when you choose not to smother, control, when you decide to hold back with strength instead of fear, you discover a new kind of power. You discover that you don't need constant validation to feel secure, control. You discover that you are enough without his every text, his every call, his every glance of approval, control. And that is the kind of energy that not only makes a man miss you, it makes him respect you, admire you, and see you as someone who stands firmly in her own worth, control. The temptation will always be there to overgive, to keep proving yourself, to try harder every time you feel him pulling back. But if you fall into that cycle, control, you lose yourself and you teach him that your value depends on how much you can chase. Break that pattern. Step back with confidence. Let him feel the silence, control. Let him face the distance. Let him come toward you. That doesn't make you distant or cold. It makes you wise. It makes you magnetic. So when the fear rises inside you, control. Whispering that he'll forget you if you stop trying so hard. Remember this, people. Don't forget what leaves a mark. And you leave a mark not by being everywhere, control, but by being unforgettable in the moments you are there and powerful in the moments you are not. That is the secret space where missing grows, where desire deepens, control, and where true connection takes root. When a man begins to feel your absence, control, it awakens something deeper than simple longing. It forces him to confront the value of your presence. This is where the shift becomes powerful. Control. Because absence is not just about being physically away. Absence is about emotional boundaries. Control. It's about no longer pouring endless energy into someone who has not yet earned it. Control. It's about allowing him to feel the difference between being prioritized and being taken for granted. And when he feels that difference, control, it can shake him awake in ways your constant presence never could. People rarely see the full weight of what they have until they're faced with the possibility of losing it. Control, this is not a flaw in love. It's a flaw in human nature. The brain adapts quickly to what feels permanent, and when something seems guaranteed, control. Its importance begins to fade in awareness. By stepping back, you disrupt that adaptation. You remind him, without saying a single word, that your presence is not automatic, control. That your love is not an unlimited resource to be consumed carelessly. You teach him that connection with you requires effort, attention, and care, control. That lesson alone can change everything. But here is the most important part. This is not about punishment. This is not about making him feel deprived for the sake of control. Control. It is about honoring yourself. It is about recognizing that your worth does not lie in constant availability, but in the balance between giving and receiving. Control. When you hold back your energy, you give both yourself and him the gift of clarity. He has the space to realize what you mean to him, control. And you have the space to realize that you are more than someone's convenience. That balance creates respect, control. Respect is born when someone realizes they cannot simply take you for granted. Respect is born when they see that you have boundaries, control, that you are not afraid to let go of what does not serve you, that you will not beg for scraps of attention. And here's the truth. Respect is the foundation of true desire. Control. A man may be drawn to many people, but he only deeply desires the one he cannot replace, the one who carries herself with dignity. Control. The one who gives love, but also demands it in return. By stepping back, you step into that role. You become not just wanted, but valued, not just seen, but remembered. Control. Imagine the shift this creates inside him. The texts he once ignored suddenly feel like opportunities he doesn't want to miss. Control. The time he once delayed giving you suddenly becomes a priority. The words he once left unsaid suddenly feel urgent. Control. And all of this happens because you stopped trying to hold on so tightly and instead trusted your own worth. That trust radiates. It tells him, without explanation, control, that you do not need him to complete you. You choose him to complement you. And nothing creates deeper desire than knowing someone chooses you freely, control, but does not need you desperately. So let the silence breathe. Let him wonder. Let him reach. Because the more he has to reach, control, the more he will realize just how much you matter. And while he is learning that truth, you are stepping into your own. The truth that you are not defined by who misses you, control, but by the strength and grace with which you hold yourself. That energy is unshakable. That energy makes you unforgettable, control. And that energy is what ensures he will feel your absence like a weight he cannot ignore. When you allow him to feel the weight of your absence, control, something even more profound takes root. You begin to feel the strength of your own presence. This is the part most people overlook, control. The real transformation is not only in how he sees you, but in how you begin to see yourself. Because the moment you step back from constantly giving, control, you create room for your own life, your own passions, your own growth. And that is the energy that makes someone truly magnetic, control. A man does not just miss a woman who disappears, he misses the woman who is alive, thriving, and whole within herself, whether he is there or not, control. This is the power of self-focus. When your world stops revolving around him, when you begin to invest in yourself again, you light up in a different way, control. You rediscover your own laughter, your own rhythm, your own purpose. You start to shine with a kind of independence that cannot be faked, control. That glow does something no words could ever accomplish. It draws him in, makes him curious, makes him H2 to be part of what you are building, control. Because longing is not only about what is missing, it is about what feels inspiring, what feels rare, what feels worth chasing. Think about how attraction really works, control. People are drawn to energy, to vitality, to the spark that comes from someone who is fully alive. When you neglect yourself, control. When you pour all of your strength into keeping someone else close, you dim that spark without realizing it. But the moment you turn that energy inward, control. The moment you give yourself the same attention you were trying to give away, you reignite that fire, control. He doesn't just miss your presence, he misses the way you light up the room, the way you carry yourself, the way your confidence makes you impossible to ignore. Control, that's the kind of missing that creates not just desire, but urgency. And here's where the counterintuitive magic unfolds. By not chasing, control, you actually become the one who is chased. By not begging for his time, you make your time more valuable. By not proving your worth, control, you show that your worth is beyond question. This doesn't make you harder to love, it makes you more powerful to lose. And when a man feels that, control, when he realizes he could lose someone who brings light, strength, and inspiration into his world, he begins to hold on tighter than ever before, control. The beauty of this is that it's not a game, it's not manipulation, it's truth. Because you were never meant to shrink yourself to be loved, control. You were never meant to beg for attention. You were never meant to prove over and over again that you deserve someone's care. You were meant to stand in your power, control, to glow from within, to share your energy freely, but only with those who recognize its worth. When you live like this, he doesn't just miss you because you step back, control. He misses you because he sees the difference between a world with your light and a world without it, and that contrast changes everything. So the path is clear, control. Step into your own life, pour into yourself. Let him feel the silence not as a punishment, but as a reminder of what he risks losing. And as you rise, as you glow, control, as you stand firmly in your own strength, he will not just miss you, he will crave you, he will long for the very presence that you once gave away too freely, control. Because now he knows it is rare, it is precious, and it cannot be replaced. The truth is, a man does not miss someone who is always within reach. He misses the mystery, control, the unpredictability, the sense of discovery that only comes when there is space. That is why your power lies not in overexposure, but in selectiveness, control. When every part of you is constantly on display, there is nothing left for him to seek, nothing left for him to imagine, nothing left for him to pursue. But when you pull back, control, When you protect certain parts of your energy, when you allow silence to exist, he begins to fill that silence with thoughts of you. He begins to wonder what you're thinking, control, what you're doing, and most importantly, what his place in your world really is. That wondering creates a spark inside his mind, a tension he cannot easily ignore, control. Psychologists call it the power of uncertainty. Our brains are addicted to solving puzzles, to seeking clarity where it doesn't exist, control. When you hand him every answer before he asks, he stops searching. But when you step back and stop explaining, stop overgiving, stop proving, you create a puzzle, control. And in that puzzle, his curiosity deepens into longing. Longing turns into effort. And effort, once given freely, transforms into appreciation, control. But here is where your strength must rise higher than ever. You must resist the urge to break the silence too quickly. It is in those moments of quiet control, when your phone stays untouched, when you choose not to fill the gap, that the seed of missing grows roots. Many give up too soon, afraid that distance will push him away, control. But the opposite is true. Distance, when combined with dignity, does not weaken connection. It sharpens it. Control. It forces him to realize that your world does not revolve around him, and that truth is both unsettling and magnetic. Because deep down, control. What pulls a man closer is not dependence, but independence. Not desperation, but self-respect. Imagine the emotional shift when he realizes you are not waiting on him. Control, that your happiness does not hinge on his next move. At first, it may confuse him. Then it unsettles him. And finally, control. It makes him crave the version of you he feels slipping out of reach. He remembers the comfort of your presence, the warmth of your attention, control, but now it's no longer guaranteed. And in that contrast, desire intensifies. He begins to miss not only what you gave, control, but the feeling of being chosen by someone who does not need to choose him at all. And while he is drawn into this realization, you continue to rise, control. You invest in your passions, your friendships, your growth. You live fully. And the more you thrive, the more he feels the weight of not having full access to you, control. This is the paradox of attraction. The more whole you are within yourself, the more someone longs to be part of your wholeness. The more secure you stand alone, control, the more he fears losing his place beside you. So let him sit in that tension, control. Let him feel the contrast between what it was like to have all of you and what it feels like now to wonder. That wondering is not weakness. It is the foundation of longing, control. And longing is the deepest form of missing, the kind that grows stronger with time. This is where he begins to see that losing you is not just losing a person, control, but losing a force, an energy, a presence that elevates everything it touches. And that realization is what makes missing you impossible to ignore, control. The more he feels that tension, the more he begins to question himself. He wonders why your silence affects him so deeply, why your absence feels heavier than he expected, control. This is not just about romance. It is about the human fear of losing something irreplaceable. When he realizes that he no longer has automatic access to your energy, control, his mind begins to replay the moments he once overlooked. The laughter he took for granted echoes louder, control. The small gestures he barely noticed suddenly feel like gifts he should have cherished. What once blended into routine now burns with significance, control, because the possibility of losing it forces him to see its value with new eyes. This is the paradox of appreciation. We rarely appreciate the sunrise until a storm hides it, control. We rarely value health until it is threatened. And in love, we rarely realize the depth of someone's presence until we feel the sting of their absence. By stepping back, control, you are not diminishing your worth. You are magnifying it. You are letting him see what life feels like without the constant glow of your presence, control. And that experience does something powerful. It awakens urgency. Urgency is what transforms passive affection into active pursuit. A man may care when you are always there, control, but he only begins to chase when he feels that care slipping beyond his reach. The brain hates uncertainty, but the heart fears regret. Together, they push him to act, control, to reach out, to reclaim what he senses could be lost. And this is where missing turns into movement. He doesn't just think of you, he begins to crave you, control, to take steps toward you, to fight for the place he once assumed was his by default. But while his urgency rises, your strength must remain steady. Control. The greatest mistake you could make in this moment is to collapse the space too quickly, to rush back the second he shows a spark of effort. Remember, control. The power is not in withholding love. It is in maintaining balance. You do not disappear to punish. You step back to protect your energy, to create clarity, control, to allow desire to breathe. And if you run back the moment he misses you, you suffocate the very flame you work to ignite. Hold steady, control. Let him feel the distance long enough for longing to deepen into respect, because here lies the truth: missing you is not enough. Desire without respect fades quickly. Control. What you want is not just for him to crave you when you're gone, but to value you when you return. Respect is born from patience, from boundaries, from the strength to say, control. I am not afraid to live without you, but I choose to share my life with you. That choice, made from power rather than fear, shifts everything. Control. It shows him that being with you is not a privilege handed freely. It is an honor that must be earned. And when he understands this, control. Missing you becomes more than a fleeting ache. It becomes a reminder of what he stands to lose if he fails to cherish you. Control. It becomes the driving force that makes him hold on tighter, listen closer, and treat you with the depth of care you have always deserved. Control. That is the transformation you are creating, not just in him, but in yourself. Because the more you honor your worth, the more the world, and anyone in it, control, will have no choice but to honor it too. Respect transforms the dynamic because it shifts love from something taken for granted into something worth protecting. Control. When a man respects you, missing you is no longer a fleeting emotion that fades once he is distracted. It becomes a constant awareness, control, a quiet reminder that your presence adds a depth to his life he cannot find elsewhere. And that awareness only grows when you continue to stand in your own power, control, refusing to collapse your boundaries just to keep him comfortable. The moment you prioritize yourself, control, you awaken a different kind of longing, the longing not just for your body or your attention, but for your spirit, your strength, your essence, control. This is where desire deepens into reverence. A man may miss someone because of attraction, but he only reveres someone who refuses to compromise her worth, control. That reverence changes everything. It changes the way he speaks to you, the way he treats your time, the way he measures his own effort, control. Because he no longer sees you as someone who will always be there regardless of how he shows up. He sees you as someone who chooses him, and that choice is fragile, powerful, control, and worth fighting for. And when a man realizes that your presence is a choice, not a guarantee, he learns to treasure it like something sacred, control. But let's be clear, this power is not about playing hard to get. It is not about manipulating emotions or creating artificial scarcity. It is about alignment, control. It is about living in such a way that you are whole, fulfilled, and radiant with or without him. It is about embodying a truth so strong that your absence carries weight, control. Not because you withhold yourself, but because you are too rare to be treated casually. When you live like this, control, he doesn't just miss your presence. He fears losing his access to a love that elevates him. That fear is not born of control, but of awareness, control. Awareness that someone like you cannot be replaced. And while he is awakening to this truth, something even greater is happening inside you, control. You are learning that the real power was never about making him miss you. The real power is in realizing you never had to chase in the first place, control. You are discovering that your worth is not measured by his attention, but by the way you hold your own energy with grace. That realization is freedom, control. It frees you from anxiety, from desperation, from the endless cycle of proving yourself. It allows you to love fully, but without fear, to give deeply, control, but without losing yourself, to step closer when it feels right, and to step back when you need space, knowing that your value does not diminish either way, control. This freedom is what makes you magnetic, because nothing draws someone closer than a person who loves without clinging, who gives without emptying themselves, control, who stands with both open hands and firm boundaries. That balance is irresistible. It creates not just missing, but longing, not just longing, but devotion, control. And devotion is the kind of energy that cannot be manufactured. It can only be inspired. So let him feel the depth of your absence, control. But never forget the greater truth, that the one who must never forget your worth is you. The stronger you stand in that truth, The more unshakable your presence becomes, control. And the more unforgettable your absence will always be. The moment you recognize that your worth has never been tied to anyone's approval, control, you unlock a level of power that changes every connection you will ever have. You stop walking into relationships with fear in your chest, hoping someone will see you, control, hoping someone will choose you. Instead, you walk with certainty, knowing that your value is not up for negotiation. And this is exactly what makes you unforgettable, control. Because a man does not miss the one who bends herself to fit into his world. He misses the one who stands tall in her own, inviting him to rise and meet her there. Control. This is why distance becomes your strength. Not a wall, not a punishment, but a space that reflects your truth. A space that says, I am whole without you, control. But I welcome you if you can honor me. That space is magnetic because it demands growth. It calls him to look at his own effort, his own investment, control, his own willingness to match the energy you bring. And when he feels that challenge, he doesn't see it as rejection. He sees it as inspiration. Because deep down, control. Every man respects what he must work for. Every heart values what is not easily won. But the deeper shift is not in him, it is in you. When you stop chasing, control. When you release the grip of fear, you begin to experience relationships from a place of abundance instead of scarcity, control. You no longer cling to someone out of the fear of being alone because you realize you were never truly alone in the first place. You have yourself. You have your strength, control. You have your dreams, your passions, your fire. And from that place, love becomes sweeter, not because it completes you, but because it adds to a life you are already proud of, control. This shift is where true attraction is born because nothing is more compelling than someone who stands in her own light, control. A man doesn't just miss your body or your words. He misses the way you carry yourself, the way you command respect without saying a thing, control. The way your silence speaks louder than your neediness ever could. He misses not only what you give to him, but the essence of who you are when you are aligned with yourself, control. That essence is rare. That essence cannot be imitated. That essence is what makes someone ache in your absence. And here is the beautiful irony: the less you seek to be missed, control, the more unforgettable you become. The moment you release the need to prove yourself, to remind him of your importance, he begins to feel it without your effort, control. He feels it in the empty spaces, in the quiet moments, in the realization that your presence was never ordinary. This is why letting go is not losing power, control. Letting go is reclaiming it. It is saying with your actions, I am not afraid of what leaves because I know what stays will be worthy of me. When you embody this truth, control, missing you is no longer just an emotion he feels. It becomes an awakening to the reality that not everyone can be replaced. Not every connection is equal, control. Not every presence can be taken lightly. And when he feels that awakening, when he realizes that you are the kind of woman who cannot be possessed, only cherished, control, his missing turns into something deeper, the fear of losing what he knows he will never find again. That fear of losing you is what ignites responsibility, control. It awakens a man to step into a higher version of himself because he realizes that your presence is not a casual gift. It is a rare honor. And the truth is, control, a man cannot truly grow when everything is handed to him without effort. Growth comes through challenge, through realizing that he must rise to meet the standard you hold, control. Not because you demand it with words, but because you live it with actions. When you hold yourself with dignity, when you protect your energy with boundaries, control, you invite him to meet you on that level or lose the chance entirely. That choice shakes him. It forces him to look inward, control. It forces him to recognize that the effort he puts in determines whether or not he gets to keep something as extraordinary as you. This is why strength in love is so essential, control. Too many give everything too quickly, believing that sacrifice is the key to keeping someone close. But sacrifice without balance does not create love. It creates dependency, control. It teaches him that he can do less while you do more. And in that imbalance, respect withers. But when you step back, when you refuse to beg, when you stand tall in silence, control, you remind him of the natural law of relationships. Value flows where effort is required. What costs nothing is valued at nothing. What is earned is treasured, control. The deeper beauty here is that your strength does not only transform him, it transforms you. Each time you resist the urge to chase control, you reinforce the truth that you are enough as you are. Each time you choose silence over desperation, you reclaim another piece of your power, control. Each time you prioritize yourself, you remind your own heart that love is not about losing yourself in another, but about expanding together from a place of wholeness, control. That kind of inner alignment radiates in ways that words cannot capture. It shows in your posture, in your voice, in your presence, control. And that radiance is exactly what makes a man realize what he stands to lose. Missing you then takes on a deeper dimension, control. It's no longer just about the absence of your attention. It's about the absence of the inspiration you bring. He begins to feel the void of your encouragement, control, the void of your warmth, the void of your strength. He doesn't just miss you because you're not there. He misses you because he feels smaller without you, control. That realization is heavy and it lingers because once someone has experienced the light of a presence like yours, the world feels dimmer without it. And yet, control, the real power is not in him recognizing this. It is in you knowing that his recognition is not required for your worth to exist. You stand whole regardless. Control, you shine regardless. And that unwavering truth is what makes you unforgettable because anyone can miss what is common, but only the rare, control, only the irreplaceable, only the unshakable are missed in a way that never fades. So never fear the silence, never fear the space, never fear stepping back, control, because it is in that very space that both you and he discover the truth. You are not just someone to miss, you are someone to fight for, someone to rise for, control, someone who cannot be forgotten. To be unforgettable is not about being louder, more available, or constantly proving your value. Control. It is about embodying a presence that is so steady, so authentic, and so self-assured that it lingers long after you have left the room. Control. That is the essence of being missed deeply, not for the role you play in someone else's life, but for the truth of who you are when you stand in your full power. Control. A man does not ache for the one who bends herself endlessly to please him. He aches for the one who cannot be duplicated, control. The one whose energy leaves an imprint that nothing else can replace. This is why self-respect is magnetic. When you know who you are and what you deserve, control. You stop begging for attention and start commanding it without saying a word. You do not have to chase, you do not have to plead. You simply exist in your truth, control. And that truth radiates. The stronger you are in that energy, the more undeniable it becomes. And when a man feels it, he cannot ignore it. Control. He feels the gap when you are not around because your presence has a gravity of its own. That gravity is built not from neediness, but from confidence. Not from insecurity, control, but from certainty. Certainty is irresistible. It is rare in a world where so many are uncertain of themselves, constantly shifting, control. Constantly trying to mold into whatever they believe will keep love close. But when you are certain, when you stand in your boundaries and honor your worth, control. You separate yourself from the crowd. You show that your love is not a bargain to be won cheaply, but a gift that must be cherished. Control. That certainty doesn't push people away. It draws them closer because deep down, everyone craves a love that feels grounded, a presence that feels unshakable, control, a person who knows her own value without needing to shout it. And that is why missing you becomes inevitable. Because once someone has experienced that kind of certainty, control, nothing else compares. He may be surrounded by others, but the energy will not feel the same. The attention may be there, but it will not carry the same weight, control. The words may come, but they will not echo with the same depth. You are missed not because you played a role, but because you showed up in authenticity, control. And authenticity is unforgettable. But here is the part that shifts everything for you. This way of being is not about him at all, control. It is about you stepping into your own life with full presence. It is about waking up each day, not to wonder how to hold someone closer, control, but to ask how you can hold yourself higher. It is about filling your own soul with the experiences, growth, and purpose that make you feel alive. And the more alive you are, control, the more magnetic you become, the more fulfilled you are, the more he will feel the weight of your absence because your presence brings light. And when light is gone, control. Its absence cannot be ignored. So let yourself shine without apology. Let yourself rise without fear, control. Let yourself claim the truth that you are not meant to be background noise in anyone's life. You are meant to be a melody that lingers, control, a presence that is felt even in silence, a force that cannot be erased. That is how you make him miss you, not by shrinking, not by chasing control, but by standing so firmly in your essence that even when you are gone, you are everywhere in his thoughts. What makes you unforgettable is not how much you give away, control, but how much of yourself you choose to preserve. There is a quiet strength in knowing that not every part of you needs to be accessible at all times, that your attention, control, your care, your love, or treasures to be experienced, not guarantees to be consumed. That restraint is not coldness, it is power. It creates contrast, control, and contrast is what makes presence felt more deeply. When every moment is available, no moment is special. But when your presence is intentional, control, when your energy is offered with purpose, each interaction carries a weight that lingers long after it ends. This is why he misses you when you step back, control, not because you've vanished, but because you've reminded him that your presence is not infinite. He feels the edge of what it means to lose your attention, control, and suddenly what was once ordinary becomes precious. The silence becomes loud, the absence becomes heavy, and in that heaviness, control, he begins to replay the moments you gave so freely before, realizing they were not owed to him. They were chosen. That realization reshapes everything, control. But the most profound transformation is not in him. It is in you. Because when you choose to hold back, you remind yourself of your own value, control. You remind yourself that you are not someone who needs to chase, not someone who needs to beg, not someone who must convince another of your worth, control. You remind yourself that you are whole already and that any connection you allow into your life must honor that wholeness, control. That kind of self-possession is what shifts you from being someone he simply enjoys to someone he cannot forget, control. Because the world is full of people who give themselves away too cheaply. Few hold themselves with the kind of reverence that makes others rise to meet them, control. This reverence is what inspires devotion. Devotion is different from desire. Desire is wanting what you see. Devotion is fearing to lose what you know you cannot replace, control. When you live with boundaries, when you stand in confidence, when you create space instead of smothering, you awaken devotion, control. You make him realize that your presence is not something he can coast through. It is something he must cherish actively. And that shift is what makes missing you so intense, control, because he does not just miss your touch or your words. He misses the way your energy forces him to be more, control. He misses the version of himself that exists only when he is in your presence. And while he feels this pull, you continue to rise. You continue to choose yourself, control. You continue to expand into your own life fully. That expansion makes you radiant. It makes you magnetic. It makes you the kind of person whose absence cannot be ignored, control, because your presence is so full of life. And this is the deepest truth when you stop trying to be unforgettable and instead live in alignment with your worth, control. You become unforgettable without effort. You become the memory that lingers, the voice that echoes, the light that even distance cannot dim. So hold your power, control, protect your energy, live fully. Because the more you embody your own strength, the more he will feel the undeniable truth. You are not just a woman he wants near, control. You are a woman he cannot afford to lose. There is a reason why scarcity creates desire, and it is not manipulation. It is human psychology. The mind values what is rare, control. When something is always available, it fades into the background. But when it becomes limited, it commands attention. This is not about playing games, control. It is about honoring your energy as something sacred, something not to be handed out carelessly. When you embody this truth, you shift the dynamic instantly, control. You stop existing as a convenience and begin existing as a privilege. And privilege, once experienced, is impossible to forget, control. Think about the times in your life when you were taken for granted, the moments where you gave and gave, hoping that more effort would create more love. Yet what happened? Control. The more available you were, the less you were valued. This is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of how the human mind adapts to abundance, control. When someone believes they can have you whenever they want, they stop cherishing the moments they actually do. By stepping back, control. By choosing wisely when and how to give your energy, You awaken appreciation in a way that no amount of chasing ever could. What this does is create emotional contrast, control. He begins to realize what life feels like with you and what it feels like without you. The warmth, the inspiration, the spark you bring cannot be replicated elsewhere. Control. In your presence, he feels lifted. In your absence, he feels the drop. That drop is what ignites longing. That longing is what makes him miss you, not for superficial reasons, control, but because the contrast reminds him of the depth he experiences only with you. And depth is addictive. Once someone has touched it, they cannot easily return to the shallow. Control. But here is where the true transformation happens. You stop worrying about whether he misses you. Control. Because you begin to understand that the point is not to control his feelings, but to elevate your own. When you focus on creating a life so full, so rich, control. So aligned with your passions and your purpose, you stop orbiting around someone else's attention. Instead, your energy becomes the sun in its own right, radiating outward, control. And the brighter you shine, the harder you are to forget. That is the paradox. The less you try to make him miss you, the more he will, control. Because true magnetism comes from freedom, not from force. It comes from showing that you are whole, that you do not need him to complete you, control, that you are willing to walk away from anything that diminishes your light. That kind of strength is rare, and rare is always desired. Rare is always chased, control. Rare is always remembered. So let yourself be rare. Let yourself be the one who does not collapse into desperation, but rises into dignity, control. Let yourself be the one who can give love, but never at the cost of self-love. Let yourself be the one who is present fully, but only when it aligns with your truth, control. Because when you live this way, you will never need to beg to be missed. You will never need to prove your worth. You will simply embody it. And in doing so, control, you become unforgettable in the deepest sense of the word. The most magnetic thing about you is not how much you give to another person, but how much you give to yourself, control. When you choose to invest in your own growth, your own joy, your own dreams, you radiate an energy that cannot be ignored. People feel it. They sense it in the way you walk, control, in the way you speak, in the way you carry yourself. It is not arrogance, it is presence. And presence is what lingers long after the conversation ends, control. Presence is what makes someone wonder what you are doing when you are not with them. Presence is what makes a man miss you deeply, control, because it awakens in him a realization that your world is rich and alive with or without him. This is the secret few people understand, control. Attraction is not sustained by constant closeness, but by curiosity. Curiosity is born when there is something left to discover, control, something that cannot be fully consumed in a single moment. When your life is abundant, when you are always learning, always creating, control, always stepping into higher versions of yourself, you become endlessly fascinating. He cannot predict you. He cannot categorize you, control. He cannot put you in a box and assume he knows everything about you. That unpredictability keeps him engaged, and that engagement turns into longing when you are not around, control. Think of the people you admire most. They are not the ones who gave everything away at once. They are the ones who continue to surprise you, who continue to inspire you, control, who continue to expand in ways that make you want to lean in closer. You are no different. When you live fully, when you refuse to shrink into predictability, control, you become a source of inspiration. And inspiration is unforgettable. You may leave the room, but the energy you carry stays with those who experienced it, control. That is why distance does not weaken your impact. It strengthens it because the memory of you grows in the spaces you no longer occupy. And the truth is, control. When he begins to miss you, what he is really missing is the way he feels in your presence, control. Your energy becomes a mirror that reflects back to him a more inspired version of himself. Without you there, that reflection fades and he longs for it, control. This is why it is so important to keep your energy pure, strong, and self-sourced. When your worth is not dependent on him, he feels it. And paradoxically, control. It is that independence that makes him crave closeness. It is your refusal to need him that makes him want you more. So stop pouring yourself out until you are empty, control. Stop making someone else's presence the measure of your value. Start building a life so magnetic that anyone who leaves feels the weight of what they have lost. Control. That is the path to becoming unforgettable, not through trying to hold tighter, but through daring to let go and rise higher. The higher you rise, control. The clearer the view becomes. And in that clarity, you will see what so many fail to see. You were never meant to be someone's option. Control. You were meant to be the standard that others cannot forget, the presence that reshapes what love means to them. When you claim that truth, missing you will not be a choice. Control. It will be inevitable. When you stop chasing and start becoming, everything changes. Chasing sends a silent message that you are incomplete. Control. That your value depends on someone else recognizing it. Becoming, on the other hand, sends a message that you are already whole, already radiant, already worthy. Control. That difference is magnetic. One drains energy, the other creates it, and people are always drawn to where the energy flows strongest. Control. A man does not miss someone who clings to him. He misses the one who has the strength to let go and still shine. You must understand this. Neediness repels. Control. But self-sufficiency attracts. Psychology has shown it time and time again. When someone perceives that you can live without them, control, they instinctively feel a deeper desire to be part of your world. It's counterintuitive, but it's real. The less you depend on him for your sense of identity, control, the more he feels compelled to prove his place in your life. Because humans value what is scarce, and what is scarce in today's world is true independence, true inner peace, control, true self-love. When you embody those qualities, you stop being replaceable. You stop being just another person in his story. You become the chapter he can't close. Control. And this is not about playing games. It is about alignment. When your heart is aligned with your own purpose, control. When your days are filled with meaning that no one can take away from you, you naturally become more attractive. You no longer live for validation. You live for expansion. Control. That shift is subtle but powerful. Suddenly, your silence becomes more powerful than your words. Your absence becomes louder than your presence. Control. And he feels it in ways he cannot fully explain. That's the pull of authentic strength. It doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It simply is. And because it is rare, control, it cannot be ignored. Think of it like gravity. You don't see it, but you feel it. You don't question whether it exists because its pull is undeniable. Control. That's what happens when you stop running after him and instead ground yourself in your own worth. You become a force of nature. Control. And forces of nature are not forgotten. They are respected, remembered, and craved. The man you want to miss, you will feel that pull every time he thinks of you. Control. Not because you demanded his attention, but because you created a life so rich, so alive, so untouchable, that he cannot help but notice its absence when you're not around. Control. This is the paradox of love and attraction. The more you try to hold on, the more it slips away. The more you release, the more it returns. Control. It's the courage to let go that draws people back. It's the willingness to stand alone that makes others want to stand beside you. And in that balance, control, you will find your true power, not the power to force someone to stay, but the power to make them realize that losing you is the one thing they cannot afford. Control. That realization, once it takes hold, does not fade. It grows, it deepens, it transforms into longing. Control. And that longing will always bring them back to the one thing they cannot replace. When you stop pouring all your attention into him and begin pouring it into yourself, control, something remarkable happens. You start to glow in ways you didn't even realize were possible. Your energy shifts, your posture shifts, your eyes reflect something deeper. Control. And it is that shift, that undeniable sense of self-possession, that captures him in a way your words never could. He begins to notice that you are not waiting by the phone. Control. You are not living for his approval. You are living for yourself. And that creates a space inside him, a space of curiosity, of desire, control, of wondering where he stands in your world. That wondering is what fuels longing. People only miss what feels uncertain, what cannot be controlled. Control. What has its own rhythm in life. When you make yourself endlessly available, you remove the mystery. You remove the chase. You remove the hunger that makes someone feel alive. Control. But when you create space, when you step back and build your own world, you give him a reason to feel the ache of your absence. Control. That ache is not punishment. It is proof that you have stopped making him your entire existence. And when you stop making someone your everything, control, you begin to make yourself unforgettable. It is a paradox that most people never understand. The harder you try to prove your worth to someone, the less they value it. Control. The more you embody your worth without explanation, the more they are drawn to it. This is rooted in human psychology. We are wired to want what feels rare, control, to chase what we cannot easily possess. When you step fully into yourself, you become that rare energy. You become the one who cannot be duplicated. And in that space, control. Missing you is inevitable. It is not something you have to force. It is something he feels because your absence highlights the depth of your presence. This requires courage, control, because it means trusting that you are enough without constant reassurance. It means walking away from the urge to text, to remind, to prove, control. It means allowing silence to speak louder than your words. And silence, when it comes from strength, is deafening. It rings in his mind. It makes him wonder, control. It makes him question. And questioning is the birthplace of missing. He will begin to ask himself, what is she doing? Who is she becoming? Does she even think of me? Control. That uncertainty creates a pull far stronger than anything you could say. And through it all, you are not waiting, you are building. You are investing in your dreams, control. Your body, your mind, your spirit. You are surrounding yourself with people and experiences that elevate you. You are crafting a life so magnetic that even if he never returns, control, you stand taller, stronger, more radiant than ever before. And that is the true reward of this path, because the goal is not simply to make a man miss you, control. The goal is to rise into a version of yourself so powerful that anyone who has ever known you cannot help but feel your absence like a shadow on their heart, control. That is the kind of presence no one forgets. That is the kind of strength that redefines love itself.